falling in love with somebody who lived in this part of the world was meeting her friends, because Amanda has the best friends. And the person that she wanted me to meet, first of all, the one that I was definitely being presented to, was her friend Anthony. And Anthony was her next door neighbor in Lexington. He was her mentor. He was her voice of wisdom. Whenever she says anything particularly brilliant to me and insightful and beautiful about the human condition, I say, that's wonderful. And she says, yes, Anthony told me that. And I must have passed that initial dinner interview, because I got to continue going with Amanda and got to enjoy the friendship of Anthony. And with Anthony also comes a wonderful host of friends of Anthony's, and Anthony's wonderful wife Laura, and so you get dragged into the family. I was thrilled when he first sent me one of his stories. I wasn't initially thrilled, I was nervous, because if you're a writer and people send you stories, you worry, because you're never sure if they want you to be polite or enthusiastic, and you're always scared they're going to be terrible. And about a page in, I was thrilled, because I knew this was good. And I was thrilled when Anthony collected a bunch of his stories together. They are glorious little memoirs, each of them cunningly constructed and delightfully written. And here to read to you and to talk to each other, I have enormous joy in presenting Amanda Palmer and Anthony Martignetti.
Thanks, honey. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. I'm going to keep it short because we want to get to the reading, but Anthony's going to read one of the stories from the book, and then I'm going to come back, and we're going to just have a really short chat about how the book came to be, how he selected the stories, and then we'll have a really short Q&A if you guys have any questions for him. And so, thank you for being here, and without further ado, Mr. Martignetti.
No, does it work? Is it working? Okay. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for the great introductions. Thanks to Porter Square Books for making this all so easy and fun, especially to Ellen. Tonight, Nathan. I'm going to read the story entitled Hate. At the coffee shop where I sit most mornings, I observe people while my heart opens, hardens, or is neutral towards them. In each of these random individuals, I expect there is pain enough to warrant warmth from me. I know this well. I know all the impulses of compassion and love lean toward truth, and anything else is a cry for help and healing. I know this, but I always forget it. I forget when faced with experiences which insist I remember, but I don't. In most faces, I see nothing. I suppose I'm not really looking, too distracted by the pond over which I slouch, by the mirror in which I'm stuck, possessed by a reflection in which I never tire. In other faces, I see sadness and worry, or see my father and grandfather, my mother and her mother. And in other faces, I see arrogance, entitlement, or stupidity. Sometimes I see the right kind of misery, but then the wrong representation of pain, or the right stoop or limp but the wrong manner with it. And then everything can change, and they magically qualify. And qualify for attention, empathy, and imagined intimacy. But mostly I hate. I don't actually like to hate, but it comes naturally. Being critical, angry, hateful. It is the heart al dente that feels like home, and that I never forget. A woman enters the coffee shop and sits at the table next to me. I see her softly, because today I must be more sad than hate-filled. Her hands, the way her thumbs look, as if they hurt. A bracelet with pink coral and silver on her right wrist, and a string of pearls wrapped around her left, which seems a quietly distinctive accessory. I look at her glasses, the thickness of them. They're magnifying lenses, but she wears them for everything, making her look a little lost in fog. She's wearing Dutch shoes and ankle socks with pink checkered design. Cute socks. She's maybe in her 40s. I feel nothing but love for this one. She is sad too, perhaps. Not particularly attractive, or is she? Maybe something more than sorrow draws me to her. Eats her muffin slowly and sips from her cup. She is patient, sits and has her coffee. There's no book or phone to distract her. Ring on her left hand, which I cannot see clearly. Her shy posture tilts her a bit forward, looking around, but not intrusively. Not as if she's looking for a conversation. She simply glances around from time to time. She qualifies. I don't hate her. Then tall Jim comes in, and I've seen him around. I never really look at him. He's basically one of the neutrals. Though he teetered on the edge of hate one time when he heard me introduce myself to someone. "Oh, you're Italian," he remarked. I said, "Aren't you clever?" And turned to scribble that very line in my hate journal. Tall Jim asks if he can sit with the woman next to me. No other seats are available. She nods, readying to leave anyway. And he says, "I hope you have a nice day." She thanks him, wishes him the same. While he's in line to order, she uses one of the small brown napkins she clutches to gather some crumbs from the table and floor that had tumbled from her muffin. I feel reassured that tall Jim has given her what I wanted to. Good wishes in the everyday. I'm relieved. I don't have to take care of every one of them, or worry about them. There are others for that. The neutrals. Let them do it. And a few minutes later, I revert to hating some stranger who strolls into the cafe. I'm already forgetting tall Jim and the shy lady, and then she comes in. The fat woman. I've seen her in here a number of times with two young, stupefied children, dazed by her constant animated chatter. These girls remain silent, fish-faced, eating pastries and drinking cocoa with whipped cream on top, while she puts on a show of enlightened, suburban, liberal child-rearing for all to hear and see, employing her own addictions to sweeten them into passivity. This woman is odious, a monstrous dominating force stuffed into a small cafe. She could pull a plow. Her voice bores holes in my skull, but these holes do not let the demons out. When she's the only other customer, her daughters being mere satellites revolving around her colossal girth, absorbed into her gravity, I can neither read, write, nor think any thoughts other than murderous ones. Kill. I want her gone for the sake of the children. For the children, little Christians, I'll wager, given the large dangling crucifix sometimes hidden by the folds under their mother's pelican neck. Her display of religiosity fits with the rest of her one-woman burlesque. She does everything but cannibalize those girls, eat their flesh, and drink their blood. Christians. God, I hate them. Then two women come in and sit at the handicapped access table I'm usually at. I like it because it's large and I can spread out. I wasn't at it this day because it was too close to her. But these women, who know the loud fat lady, sit there and they all say hi and they ask her, how's the new baby? And in that moment I think, oh, maybe she hasn't been fat all this time, but pregnant. And this is just leftover baby weight. After all, pregnant is not fat, and the hormonal changes women go through during and after pregnancies account for a lot. And maybe that's what I've been reacting to. Nah, I just can't stand her. And then she said to them, he died. A moment's pause while the women swallow their shock and then sob out the usual things, and the lady says, thank you, but it's okay. He was so beautiful, and it was so beautiful the way he left us. It was really a wonderful thing how we all held him until it was his time to go. It was really, really something. And here, I fell into another universe, pulled by her gravity myself now. I suddenly wanted nothing more than to hear her speak again, but that was all she said, and let the women hug her and return to the window seats where her daughters remained and where bits of her tattered croissant passed through her heavy lips. I forget the lesson that we are one and we love and hurt, all of us together, but it seems I love to hate. So I forget. I forget the way I forgot that lady I hated at that Buddhist retreat center. Short, wide, airy-fairy, hippie-looking chick reeking of patchouli oil and covered with bells and tassels, bracelets and buttons which proclaimed her worldviews. Her annoyance capacity was astonishing. And I'd never even heard her voice or got a look into her eyes, but I hated her. Hated her excessively upright posture and her rolling narcissistic gait, her bumper sticker spirituality, and her scented, bangled, goddess-obsessed life. I hated her auras, her crystals, and her astrological sign. I hated her hair and her slippers. I hated her being. My mind spun evil all day, and there were no distractions at this place. We retreatants couldn't speak or read or listen to music or make eye contact with the 120 others accompanying us for 10 days. I needed distraction bad. She was also Jewish and insisted that she light candles in some horseshoe-shaped candelabra every night in the dining hall. Couldn't relate to that show at all. Waddling up there all Jewish and holy and tribal about it. And she was always the first one in line for every meal, and I was starving. Man, and I hated her for that too. This lady created so much angry skull chatter that I fantasized about leaving the retreat and going to get drunk at a local bar so I could sneak back in and somehow frighten her to death while she slept. This, of all things, I had developed as my individual Buddhist retreat plan. Then one day, during the snail's pace walking meditations we did when we weren't sitting and meditating, I inched by a window heading to my room and through it saw the very woman in an open snowfield behind the monastery. She was facing the woods, her back to me, her pygmy-like arms outstretched at shoulder height, face turned skyward. She was covered in tiny birds. What the hell? I saw them flying to her from the far-off trees, while others jetted off her pudgy hands and back to the woods. A continuous loop of living motion. There were 8 or 9 of them on each arm, and she stood there like some Twinkie, Jewish Francis of Assisi. I was stunned, stopped dead at the window, watching silent, slack-jawed. In a few minutes, she turned toward the building and headed, ever so slowly, as is the instruction, through the snow toward the rear door where I was standing in the vestibule. Who was this now? She had transformed, in my estimation, into a mysterious being that held sway over nature, which flocked to her. Wild, twitching nature. The tiny birds, still here with us in the bitter winter, sticking it out, not like their nomadic brethren, not just any birds. These were birds of character. She entered the door, looked directly at me and I at her, which is counter to the instruction, and then reached slowly into the outside pocket of her suede fringed jacket. She extended a closed hand towards me, and I slid my open hand under her fist, and she, expressionless, let hundreds of seeds fall into my palm. The tiniest of smiles curled at the corners of her mouth as she moved on past. She revealed her trick to me. She knew I needed something, some ritual, some transformational magic. I walked straight out to the field wearing only jeans and a t-shirt, found her footprints in the snow to stand in, and with seeds in both hands spread my arms. And in a few minutes, sailing in from 50 yards away, came a stream of life which landed on me, each waiting turn to take a seed and go. These babies against me, their vibrating life quivering on my open body. They blood-doped me with the current of their living energy. Not one of them concerned with which was in line first to eat. They were civilized, queuing up like the British. Not like me, the barbarian hate-monger. They warmed and melted me, unlocked and unpacked me. After a while, in thrall, I returned to the retreat. A few hours later, silently invited by her outstretched hand, I went up with her before dinner, and together we held the long matchstick she used to light that night's candle, and we performed the sacred and the ancient ritual. Her hand shook as she placed it over mine while we touched flame to wick, and she whispered to me in a voice that I had never heard and which trembled like the tiny birds, "This is for my grandparents who were lost." And in that moment, I fell again into a far rockaway of the heart. She turned to me, her eyes brimming over. She washed me with her tears and lit my candle that cold night. And it was different from all other nights. I flew to her, and she fed me. I became a convert to her rituals and to the mystery and miracle of the heart undone. And this, even this I would forget if not for these occasional wailing walls I attempt to build with broken down words.